Live, we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the Lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the Lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you're on the Lifeboat. And guess who's back? My bobble-headed partner and I are in the same place at the same time, which is a beautiful thing. I'll be honest with you. Like I said last night, it's just a lot more fun from the seat that I'm in when both of us are here, and it just, yeah. So
I would say the same thing.
Yeah, nice.
For real.
We're looking forward to tonight's show. And then you know what else too? There's something about Sunday nights here on the Lifeboat that just consistently, if you ever just want to go back and check out shows, check out Sundays. They just tend to be really good stuff. Sunday always seems to be one of those nights when the shows are jumping. So we're happy. So you probably saw the thumbnail. We're going to jump right into it. The subject matter of society accepting you for who you are, not who you used to be, is something that we've touched on here. I don't know how many times on the Lifeboat, and it's one of those things that every time it comes up, there's usually something that has happened that drives it. And you know, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, and sometimes it's a combination of both. You know, I spoke briefly yesterday about, you know, my business is kind of moving up the food chain, which is really cool from a standpoint of someone who's into horology. I'm seeing some really cool watches, right? And the watches that I see are getting better and better. And very often that means a little bit pricier and a little bit rarer. And, you know, the people that I deal with, I'm very honest with up front. Because the last thing in the world I would want would be for somebody to hand me a watch that's worth 2 or 3 times what a car is, and then get home and have them go, maybe I ought to Google this guy, right? Or just, you know, or any of that, things like that, or meet somebody in Nevada who says to them, you did what? Right? So I'm very honest, and I'm very upfront about my past, because you're going to hand me something of value. You should probably know who you're dealing with. And I'll be really honest with you. The acceptance, the people that go, yeah, no, yeah, I get that. That, you know, that was who you used to be, and you know, obviously you've changed your life, and yeah, here, take this thing home, work on it, and sell it, and then let's get the money back, kind of thing. And it's, you know, I was cruising along, really feeling good about, you know, who I've become. You know, I can't tell you the number of times where I'll be sitting there thinking, this is so much different than the life that I led. You know, I really have sort of gone out of my way to try to design a life that I could be proud of. And it's the fruits of that labor are really obvious when, you know, people trust you. And one of the things that, it's one of the payoffs. It really is. And I don't mean from a business standpoint. Who cares if, about the money end of it? I just mean that it feels great to be trusted. It feels amazing to be in a position where I feel like that new creation thing is complete. And as soon as I really start to get to a point where I'm getting accustomed to it, and where I'm starting to ease into that, this is me, then something will come along and slap me really hard in the face that will remind me of my past. And it is, I'm sorry, just one moment here, people. I bought my husband a Panerai and an IWC and an Amiga Speedmaster and more. Boy, he loved them. Great investment too. You know what? Great watches. Sorry, I just saw the Lifeboat part and I thought, that was addressed directly to me. Great watches, no question. Every single one of those, except I think it should have been IWC instead of EWC. But yeah, great watches, good taste, excellent selection. The business that I'm in, it really does. It makes you feel like people have accepted me as a new person. And what's sometimes amazing is that the people that don't seem to be able to accept me quite often are people that knew the old me, right? I can come out and tell everybody exactly who I used to be, what I used to be. And people who have never met me before, it's an instant acceptance of, oh, okay, well, that's who you used to be. And, I like the guy you are now, and I'm super happy and trusting and all of that. But when something comes up and society doesn't accept you, it can rock your world. There are some issues that are coming up with travel. The inability for me to get on an airplane and fly to California for about 9 hours so that I can see my daughter graduate high school, a promise that I made to her a very, very long time ago, and one that I really intend to keep. But I have a sneaky suspicion that it's going to take every day from now until then, which would be about 3.5 to 4 weeks of just beating on the phones and the computers and filling out paperwork and really raising hell in order to make that happen. And I find it somewhat amazing that no matter what I do, the people who I answer to are never going to let me forget the things that I've done, and the consequences of those are going to be something that just sort of hammer at the back door every single time I have any interaction with these people. And it's a very difficult thing, people, to find yourself not getting bitter, right? I sit down and I think to myself, so these people who don't know me, right? These people that don't have any reason to trust me on my word, and trust me to, the 10th degree, handing me heirlooms and valuable things and no issues. But the people who drug test me whenever they want, the people who know whether or not I have done every single thing that I have been asked to do since walking out of that hellhole, the people that know I'm hitting it out of the park can't trust me. And there's a level of frustration there that I think bears talking about, because although you may not be going through this, I assure you that you're probably going through something similar. We do the shows where we talk about how, if something comes up missing, right? We've talked about this how many times? If you're in a room with 4 people and a $20 bill comes up missing, or my bobbleheaded partner told a great story last week of a bottle of pills that seemed misplaced. And no matter what, it is what it is, that first thought. And you can't be angry at people for that first thought, but it certainly can rock you, to your core. And I think that we all need to be really careful that we don't buy into what society wants to think of us. The thumbnail that Mark put together for this is awesome. It really is. I hope you take a really close look at the thumbnail. Obviously, for anybody that has been in the life, that photo is definitely a methamphetamine thing. If you're not very familiar with meth or crystal meth, very oftentimes there is something that goes along with long-term meth use that they call meth psychosis. Now, the good thing about meth psychosis is normally what it requires is a little sleep and it goes away. I mean, it sounds like you hear meth psychosis and you think, wow, that's the end of the world there, right? You're going to be messed up for eternity. You have this meth psychosis. It's brought on by the fact that you spend far too much time awake, right? The human mind is designed in such a way that there are some things that we can't deal with during the day, truthfully. So our mind has come up with a way to work through this while we're asleep. So you ever have those dreams where you're like, yeah, it was a really normal dream. It was me and I was hanging out with two guys from my high school. And, we were back together and we were, sitting in a restaurant and an elephant walked in, right? There's always this one thing that seems to make no sense when you hear somebody tell the story, right? Like all of a sudden, like, an elephant and a lion go walking through the restaurant. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell is that all about? Very often the dreams don't seem like they make a whole lot of sense, but what they are is your brain working out something, right? That elephant is symbolic of something and the lion or the tiger is probably symbolic of something else, but whatever has got you sort of stressed out, those dreams help you work through. Now you don't go, oh, sure. Now that lion, elephant. Yeah, I'm good. I feel a lot better about what so-and-so said to me on Wednesday. Right? You never put it together, but it does help you through that process, right? And I think I've told the story. In college, I got paid to do a dream study where I got a pile of money to agree to be to not dream for 7 days, and they would let you fall asleep, but they have two observers who sit and literally 4 inches away and watch you. And the second they see the eyes begin to move underneath the eyelids, what they call rapid eye movement, they would wake you up. And they would have a series of about 7 or 8 questions that they would ask you. And they do it slowly. So it takes, 4 or 5 minutes. And then you're up. And so when you start to go back to sleep, you don't immediately drop back into that delta phase of sleep. And this went on for almost a week. And then I agreed to take a larger chunk of money and a bonus to try to go 2 more days. And it literally got to a point where they were waking me up and I was saying, the next person who wakes me up, I'm going to remove the head of, it really, but crazy things start happening. You're not making any sense whatsoever. And of course they're videotaping all of this and I'm talking to people who aren't in the room. Well, this is what happens when people stay awake for 7 or 8 days on crystal meth. And one of the affectations of meth psychosis is that very often they will find something, right? Oh, it's a blackhead, or oh, it's a pimple, and they will begin to try to pop that. And because amphetamines, this is why they give amphetamines to kids who have a difficult time focusing, right? Because it makes you laser focused. Some people call that tweaking, but it's, you hear the people say, well, I was tweaking on something. Right? The inability to think of anything else that's going on in the room, right, is tweaking on something. Well, they can get at a mirror they can get at a mirror and start to tweak on a blackhead. And you start to go down this road, right? You get so hyper focused on what you're doing that eating, sleeping, all of those things take a back seat. And very often, you hear these horror stories and you hear them a lot in prison where someone will say, I lost 55 pounds. One of the things that they're losing really quickly is water weight, because you will forget to drink. You will forget to do anything. Very often it's just, you become so myopic on the drug and whatever you decide to tweak on. There was a commercial back in the 90s, and it showed a girl in the kitchen with a toothbrush cleaning the grout on the floor. And they had a jingle in the background that said, I don't eat, I don't sleep, but I got the cleanest house on the street, right? Crystal meth. And they took it down pretty quickly. It didn't last long because I think everybody just laughed hysterically when it came on, which was probably not what they were going for. But those things really kind of work out that way. And that first image that you see on the thumbnail is a guy that obviously began to tweak on his face. They call those people pickers. And it's awful. there have been beauty queens that have absolutely destroyed how they look. Literally, you see examples of girls that were models who just pick until, they have caused purple scarring that is going to last them the rest of their life. And I have been in situations where you see somebody doing it and you go up and you go, hey, you got to knock that off. And I mean, you can't tackle them. You bring them back into the living room and go, no mirrors, right? You can't go there. So you got to calm down, right? No mirrors. Yeah. Okay. And within seconds, right, they're feeling, and they think they found something. Nothing you can do to stop it. And I'm glad that Mark put up that picture, because see, society really does get that mental image, right? Once you have been on that side of the equation, it's rare that society can view you as they did that man with his wife and his kid, who just obviously is healthy as hell and he's eating and looking good. And very often in the eyes of the people that what you see instead is this, right? What they see instead is the image that, it gets stuck in the mind. And people, it's such again, we hear this a lot on the Lifeboat, but it's a really fine line, because I think we would like to scream at the top of our lungs, yo, I'm not that guy anymore. Don't treat me, like the tweaker or the addict or the junkie or whatever, term they have locked in their head. Don't treat me like the guy that spent, 2 days digging in his face, because I'm not that guy anymore. But the truth of the matter is, the only way that you make that stop is by doing the right thing for a really long period of time. And it's sad, but it's the truth. We've talked about why the media outlets suck, right? Plain and simple. We know why the media outlets suck, because salacious sells, right? And it's the same reason that society has a very difficult time. That is the same guy. Can you imagine, people? Right? Can you imagine? But what a great example of, the dichotomy between what somebody was and what somebody is. Now, if you had only met that person, he's got these 2 beautiful girls with him, you're going to have a visual image. And for the rest of the time that you see him, you'll go, oh, yeah, the blonde guy, really good shape, got his kids with him, right? But if you knew him before, no matter what somebody sees, salacious sells. So society is always going to have in their head that 110-pound version of you in the back seat, where your jaw is just going back and forth and you can't, calm down. Or it's a sad fact that that's kind of how society is. Now, we can get really angry at him and we can lash out. But one of the problems with your walk in sobriety is that very early on, right? Let's say the first 6 months to a year, your brain's angry anyway, right? It is. Your brain's mad. There's no getting around it, because you've been feeding it a chemical that basically keeps your brain from having to punch in and do a 9 to 5. Normally, your brain releases chemicals for this or chemicals for that, and then it compensates for this or it compensates for that. There's a reason that the psychological community will say he was self-medicating or she was self-medicating. What you were doing was regulating how much feel-good chemical your brain was going to pump into your body, right? So whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, right? Obviously, in my opinion, it's horrendous. But whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, it's a fact. That's what's been going on. So now your brain has to go back to work. And there is a period of time where your brain just says, I'm not going back to work. Okay, you ain't getting any feel-good chemicals. I liked not working. I liked you pumping chemicals in. So get back to doing that. And you got to go out and you got to find hobbies, and you got to change people, places, and things, right? Because the more you can get your brain going, hey, what's going on here? And looking around at things that are brand new and different, the quicker it goes, oh, that's kind of cool. And it starts to bleed a little feel-good chemical back into the body. This man obviously hit a weight pile. Like, you can look at the before and after and realize this guy decided that weightlifting was going to be one of the things that he went into. And, obviously taking care of himself was high on the list. And so was his kids, right? All good things. But in that very beginning of this process, you're just angry. You can't help yourself. You're angry. So when you see society treat you like the guy in the back seat of the car, when you're already moving toward the guy with the daughters, it's really easy to fall into bitter, right? It's really easy to fall into bitter. And if you find yourself in a situation where, next month I'm 7 years off of this garbage, but the people who know for a damn fact that I haven't done it in 7 years, the people who randomly drug test me whenever they want and know I'm not doing anything wrong, still treat me like the dude in the backseat. And, I'm no guru. I'm just another guy trying to get sober and stay sober like all of you, right? So I deal with this. Everybody deals with this. And I want to curse. I want to throw things. It doesn't pay off. And the more that you dwell on it, last night, I'm not going to lie to you people. I went down the rabbit hole of hate last night on this subject matter. I really did. And I started to think of all of the reasons that these people who have the ability to govern me and make decisions for me on just every single way in which they were dirtbags. And it's one of those things that once you start going down that rabbit hole, you can get out of control really quickly, right? Like you can start gritting your teeth for 45 minutes at a time, and your brain will start to fall into patterns that are, number one, not real healthy. And number two, are really reminiscent of page 2 Tommy. So I'm sitting there and I'm wrestling with this, and I came to a conclusion that late last night that, the majority of people that I was doing time with in prison who were locked up were kinder people than all of these people whose job it is to help us reintegrate into society. I mean, truthfully, and I started thinking about all of that, and it was great. It was, because it all of a sudden it hit me like a ton of bricks. I thought, all right, you know what I'm really doing? I'm picking 5 people like Q, and I'm saying that the entire prison system is like those people. And then I'm picking 2 or 3 real dirt bags from this federal system and saying, and the entire federal system is like those guys, right? And I have in my head created this me and them kind of this thing, and I'm just getting more angry and more angry. And when it hit me that, you know what, you're letting this roll. You're letting this get out of control. And I got back to the best way to put it is I got back to basics, like real serious basics, right? We talk about this, the tools, right? What's the big one we talk about, right? With the P word. I'm like, perspective. You know what? Worst case scenario. These guys got about 1.5 years left that they can harass me. Realistically, probably not going to happen. That is, if they say, no, you've done absolutely everything right. You've never done anything wrong. You've never done anything to upset us. So we're going to make you do every day of this, supervision. If they decided to go that route, it'd be about another 1.5 years. And once I started thinking about things like that, then logic begins to kick in. That's the beautiful thing about perspective is, right? If you don't have perspective, then logic has done this one a while ago, right? And then you're just, you're into this whole tailspin. And as I start doing the logical thing, at first I'm thinking they're really loving this. Like they really enjoy making my life tough. They really enjoy the fact that, they're not letting me go here and they're not letting me go there and I can't go see they don't care, right? Once you start getting into the logical thing, I'm thinking, why would they pick me, right? The one guy that hasn't done a damn thing to bother them. Why would they of all of the people, why me? They've never had to chase me. They've never had to show up at the house with dogs and go through that, and all of the stuff that they got to do all the time. And it occurred to me that if they're doing this to me, this is how everybody gets treated. There's no way they picked the one guy that's hitting it out of the park, right? Let's pick the guy that runs a sobriety channel and has never failed a drug test and just harass him. Is that logical? No, it's not. So from a perspective standpoint, now I'm back into the logical part of the brain. And then it occurred to me, why would they keep me on longer than they need to, right? To be mean? No, what it boils down to, and I'm sorry if I ruffle any feathers here, but the logical part of my brain said, boy, you're never going to come across a lazier pack of people than those who work for the feds and have for long periods of time. Sorry, but that's the logical part of this. And I thought to myself, if they keep me on for another year and a half, I'm just one more piece of paperwork that they got to pick up and file and slide across the desk. That ain't going to happen. They're going to get an opportunity to make their caseload one less person. Now, might not come across their desk as fast as they're supposed to, because more than likely they're playing golf or they're at home eating a 5-pound bag of Oreos and watching the Kardashians while they're supposed to be working. But regardless, at some point, my file is going to slide across their desk. They're going to pick it up and go, you know what? We don't have to deal with this guy. So instead of having 67 people on my caseload, I now have 66. Right? That's awesome. That's one less piece of paper that I got to file once a month. Kick them off. But I couldn't get to that while I was feeling like they owed me a different kind of treatment. Right? You need to treat me better, damn it. Right? I'm not just a good probationer. Right? I am co-host of a damn sobriety channel. Like, I work a full-time job trying to help people get sober. You owe me better treatment than that. Pretty funny stuff, isn't it? Right? And we've done shows on this. You know what the world owes you? Nothing. For real, nothing. But we start to go down these insane kind of rabbit holes where you start thinking, well, you know what? I'm doing everything right, so you need to treat me differently, right? No, when you do everything wrong, they're going to treat you a certain way because there's actually laws against doing everything wrong, right? You have forced them to actually become a part of your life. Well, but when you're doing everything right, they don't owe you squat. What you're doing is falling back into line. I owe them to actually get my life in order and prove that I can be a part of this society. Now, are they supposed to help me back into it? Yeah, they are. Are they doing that? Probably not. Honestly, probably not. They haven't done a whole lot to help me. The good news is you have. For real, right? There's not a person on this boat, not one of you. There's not one crew member on this boat who hasn't done more for me to re-enter society than everybody in the federal system has. It's got to make you feel good, right? Yeah. I mean, truthfully, and I'm fine with that. I would much rather have to look out on the deck of this boat and go, these are the people, right? This is my crew. These are the people that helped me live life, get out of that crap hole and actually start to become a member of society. If I got to spend the rest of my life thanking a group of people, you think I would like it to be employees of the federal government or you people? That's an easy one, right? It's an easy one. So my partner, my crew, all of this, people, comes from perspective. If you knew the number of hours yesterday that I could not keep any of this in perspective, if you knew the number of hours that I just started to hate, and you know something, this is a great story, but it is the gospel truth. I went in when I started to round the corner was right around the time I brushed my teeth last night, right? Truthfully. And the reason is I'm in there and I've got this very cool, by the way, if you don't have a Sonic toothbrush, you should have one because they're the greatest thing in the world. But I go in there and I get the Sonic thing going. And if you've ever used one of these, it's like, it goes 30 seconds and it beeps. Right? And you go to another side of the mouth and it goes 30 seconds and beeps. So about the third beep, so about a minute and a half into this, I finally looked in the mirror. And you people have probably never looked at me when I'm in, I hate everything mode. But I don't look the same. I really don't. And I caught myself in the mirror with this toothbrush in my mouth, right? And this look on my face. And I remembered the look, you know, because I spent about 35 years wearing that look. And I don't remember the last time I looked in a mirror and I saw it, but it sucked. Wasn't a good feeling. And honestly, that was the point at which I was like, you know what, man, you got to get your you-know-what together. You got to get your you-know-what together. I'm going to this graduation, people. I'm going to this graduation. And as opposed to letting these people bother me, if 2.5 to 3 weeks from now, they haven't come back and answered the question, I'm just going to go see my judge. I'm just going to walk through that metal detector. I'm going to sit in the back of the court and I'm going to stand up and say, Your Honor, I have filled out 40 pieces of paper, which, by the way, I started doing months ago. And I can't get anybody to answer this because apparently my probation officer retired and finding someone who will take my case. But I made this girl a promise and I'm going to keep it. So what do I got to do? Right. By the way, please look at my record because I haven't done anything wrong since I walked out of that crap hole. I've done everything I've been asked to do. And you remember when I said to you, if you let me out a little early, I intend to try to change the world by helping people get sober. And you said, I don't buy it. Well, if you got a laptop there, bud, check out the Lifeboat. Didn't do it for his benefit, people. I promise you. I did it because I swore to myself that if I could wake up one morning not feeling like I had to have heroin, that this is what I would do. And yeah, but once the logic and the perspective starts coming back into play, I slept like a baby. Now, I wish that had happened at 8 because I would have had a much longer sleep like a baby session because I do church on Sunday. And unfortunately, that slept like a baby thing happened real late. But, what it comes down to is that the toolbox that my bubble-headed partner and I preach about really does work, right? It really does. Start going through that list of things that we talk about all the time, right? Are you keeping this in perspective, or are you blowing this up to larger than life perspectives? Is society going to treat you the way that they should? No, probably not. Probably not. Is there anything that you can do about that? No. I mean, you can continue to do exactly what you're doing. And if you do everything right for, say, the next 9 to 10 years, you'll be somewhere and someone will go, look at it, junkie. And the person they talk to are going to go, are you kidding? That girl's been sober for 12 years. What the hell is wrong with you? You may never hear it. You may not know what happened, but I promise you, you keep doing the right thing and things will fall into place. But if you let these things bother you, you know what's going to happen? You're going to end up back in a bottle or a spoon or a straw or a bong or whatever it is that you used as a crutch for so long, because you're always going to get to the point where that anger takes over and you say, I can't deal with this, right? That's a real bad phrase for drug addicts. Am I right?
100, man.
That is an ugly phrase.
And I think, I would add to that too, when we're talking about this, we have to understand that, our family and our loved ones, they have a before and after already in their head. The people that we're just meeting don't. They don't have that to reference back to. So that's a hurdle that we have to cross within the people that were around us and loved us during our addiction. And it definitely is something we have to cross. And we have to recognize that we are the ones that caused that. So we cannot blame our family or anything like that for everything there, okay? Once you get to a certain point, yeah, hey, listen, mom, listen, dad, listen, brother, listen, sister, uncle, mom, whoever you're talking to, hey, I'm not that person no more. And you might have to point it out to them 5,000 times.
Yeah, you might.
You might, but do it in a respectful way. And if you do it that way, I promise you, they will slowly start to lose that vivid memory of, well, we'll do this. Vivid memory of that. Okay? That's what they're seeing. That's a hard image when you're looking at somebody. Pretend you're his mom.
Right.
Could you imagine that being burnt in your memory if you're looking at your kids? That's never going to leave the mind, ever. It's not. It's always going to be there. But just like a filter on what we do here, like on photo editing or whatever, you could turn on that blur filter and it'll start blurring out and that stuff will start to fade away. It's never going to go 100% away, but it's going to go far enough that it's probably not going to be talked about, or even it might enter the mom's mind for a second and it'll leave, right? And it's up to us to do that, because if you do that, guess what? Well, she starts seeing this. That's what she starts to see. And I promise you, that is more powerful than that first one. Okay? I'm not even kidding. That is just what it is, So you got both of them. What do? We want to get rid of that first one. But the fact of the matter is, this is what will happen, right? I mean, I know I'm kind of messing with editing here a little bit, and I didn't really even plan to do this. But what happens? What happens is it starts to do this. Okay, it really does. And that's what your mom and your loved ones will see. Yeah, they still remember it, but now they're starting to see your kids. They're starting to see you healthy. And like I said, I picked this picture because it is a very, very dramatic change. And I wanted people to be able to see that. But it's a great one. It really is. And there's a lot of them
Love
out
it.
there if you go look at it. And I think that even for myself, sometimes I have to do this. And I'm not saying everybody should because, seeing those kinds of pictures like the one I showed you there on the beginning, um, I get it. It could be a trigger. It really can. It makes you remember what you were doing. But it can, again, that's one of those things you can put in your belt. But, we just got to move past that. And we're never going to forget it, but we have to understand that our loved ones are going through our addiction with us during the rough, the all of it. And it's a good feeling when you wake up one day and you look around and you see that one that's there on, right now, and that's what everybody sees you as. And you can get there because look at the smile on that man's face. I mean, it's just amazing. It really is. And I brought that up because Tommy talked about looking in the mirror. You're going to know what you look like when you're mad or sad or whatever, but you can't look at yourself unless you look in the mirror. You got to do that, sometimes. And I get it. We get in our own heads. That's just a normal thing, guys. I mean, honestly. So, and this is how, for those of us that have been in recovery for a while or not, this is one of those things we have to work on. We have to tell ourselves, go look. Go look. You get mad, next time take yourself to the mirror. Just go to the bathroom. Go look in the mirror. And if you look at that face and you don't like that face, guess what? Happiness is a choice. Choose it. Even if you have to go out and fake it for just a second. Because sometimes that's what you have to do. And that's just real life, guys. It might not feel good. It might kill you to go outside with a smile a few days. But that's normal, right? I mean, I think that's a normal thing for anybody that's not even an addict. But I'm glad Tommy brought this subject up because it is something it's very powerful and it doesn't get talked about enough. It doesn't.
No, I think you're right. You know what? Before I forget, happy birthday, Brandon.
Yeah.
Right? Happy birthday. Glad that you're here. I'm going to do this wrong. I think it was do UCNP, right? I didn't catch the rest of it, but welcome to the Lifeboat. It was one of those names that as I looked at, I thought, if I try to pronounce this, it's not going to work real well. But the UCMP was all caps. So, and Bubba, good to see you as well.
And Bubba News is here too.
Right?
Both Bubbas are here.
Is that right? We got two Bubbas here?
Yeah, Bubba and Bubba News.
Nice. Very cool. It's this is one of those situations that we probably don't talk about often enough. And one of the reasons I think is it really is easy to fall into bitter. You know what I mean? I can go off on a rant real easily when I start talking about how society treats addicts, and we used to talk about it quite a bit in the beginning of the show when Mark and I first got rolling, because we wanted so much for society to kind of accept, the recovering addict in more of an understanding matter, right? I think we all agree this is a mental illness. Drug addiction is a mental illness. There's no way it isn't, right? Whether you want to call it a disease or whatever, it is a mental condition. There's no doubt about it. But society is very forgiving of almost any mental condition, unless there's drugs or alcohol involved in it, in which case, they tend to spit out a lot of phrases that we're all super familiar with, right? Lock them up, throw away the key. They did it to themselves, right? All of these things. Why don't they just stop? Wow.
Oh God!
If I had only thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, we say that a lot now.
That whole stopping thing just never really occurred to me. Now I feel like an idiot. I should have just stopped. Right? It's almost humorous, but and I think that we may have shied away from coming back to this because sometimes I just get that kind of steamroller thing. Yeah. But I thought, this was a pretty good.
It definitely
this was a pretty good occasion, yeah, to be able to pump the brakes on myself. I figured if this was happening to me, it's probably happening to other people as well. It's just really easy to do that.
Yeah,
they need to treat me better. They owe this to me. I'm doing everything right. Why wouldn't they? Blah blah blah.
right.
You know what, people? The only person that you really owe anything to is you, and then all of the people on that why list on the first page, you owe something to them too.
You
All the
do.
people that you listed as your why of getting sober, but
Well, we
the world
destroyed
doesn't owe
those.
us anything.
You know, we
Go ahead.
destroyed those, right?
Right.
When we were doing it, because guys, frankly, yes, we were being influenced by a chemical, but we're the ones that still chose to do all of that. I mean, and our family was, our family can sometimes take some responsibility because sometimes they do things. We get that, right? But I've mentioned this example before, but this time it really applies, probably more than any other. The time where my mom, it was at her birthday, we were singing happy birthday and all that, and I was going to watch my nephew the next day. And it was time for me the next day to get my medicated assisted treatment, my Suboxone. So I had to go to the clinic to get my prescription. And I told my sister, I said, hey, I got the clinic, but he can just ride with me. I just got to pick up the script and we'll roll out. And without missing a beat, my mom says, I don't want him out there with those people. Okay. And I bring this up not because, I mean, obviously it affected me, right? I mean, or I wouldn't even have remembered it. I mean, that hit me, and it hit me pretty hard. But if I hadn't have been 8, 9 years into my sobriety, oh my gosh, she'd have probably got a totally different reaction, right? So I didn't even say anything, and I just walked outside, kind of calmed down a little bit, and I just kind of looked at her and I said, Mom, I am those people. And you could just see the blood just fall out of her face, and I felt bad for even doing that to her. You know what I mean? And it wasn't my intent, but I wanted her to understand that, hey, you said something there and it hurt. You know, I understand why you said it, and believe it or not, I went back and had a conversation 2 days later, and I was like, listen, I said, I thought about all that, and guess what? I don't want to take him out there either.
Right.
You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is, even though what she said was probably the wrong thing to say at the wrong time, it still was the correct thing for me to hear, because I learned from that. I learned that not only is she still viewing that way, I'm actually pushing too far the other way.
Right.
So there's a balance there that we have to find. We have to be realistic with this, guys. I mean, I wouldn't want Mike. I just wasn't thinking, to be honest with you, and that's what it was. But yeah, I'll just take him out there with me, because in my mind, I'd been out there so many times, and all I was doing was picking a script up. But I get it. Because I remember going to that clinic when I first went there, and things have changed now, and I'm not going to get into that. But when I went out there, I mean, there were drug
It was
dealers.
scary.
Yeah, I mean, showing what I call Walmart reject type of stuff, where they running there with their pajamas on, and they're doing drug deals in the parking lot, and
Right.
that kind of thing. So yes, I wouldn't take my own kid out there. So why would I expect? You know what I mean?
I get that completely. Blue Dazzlebug has left a comment that I got to address.
Okay.
And I kind of scrolled by it, and if I try to scroll back, the odds of me blocking half of you from ever being able to leave another comment are pretty high.
I'll go try
but
to find it.
It was something along the lines of, what really upsets me is I never got a chance to talk to my dad about this, because my dad passed, and at the time I was kind of resentful about.
I can read it for you if you want me to.
Yeah, please.
It says, it makes me sad that I can't go talk to my dad about what happened. He passed away several years ago, and I was mad at him not understanding me.
You know something? Let me. I think that this one is important as heck. I really do. And this comes up way more often than you think, right? This is something that so many people wrestle with. And the first time I heard anybody talk about this, I thought, this is just mumbo jumbo. Like I honestly almost found it offensive. And then I found myself in a situation where I could actually do it, right? But the assignment that I heard somebody, hand out, and the first time I heard this was at a rehab center, but they said, write a letter, right, to that person. Now, there are different things you can do. For me, I write the letter when I'm done, right? I crumple the thing up and I throw it away. There are people who will take it to a gravesite. There are people that will go do all kinds of different things, almost ceremonies. Some people burn the letter, whatever. But you write that letter as if dad has the opportunity to read it, and it will do wonders for your soul. You would not believe it. If you ever watch any of the really old episodes of the Lifeboat, I ran into a girl I knew who I gave some cash to, who died in a parking lot. The next door, I met her at a parking lot. She died the next day doing dope. And there was a part of me for a long time that kind of wrestled with the fact that I didn't just force her into my car and try to go get her help. And I wasn't in a position to really talk, to her, obviously. And I've written her a half a dozen letters. And I'll be honest with you, every time, it's something that gets me through, because there are days that this still haunts me, and there's probably always going to be days that still haunts me. But it's amazing how fast writing her a letter sort of clears that up. And I don't know, your beliefs are your beliefs. I'm of the firm belief that when I write this letter, there's an excellent chance she did see it. But it's neither here nor there. That's not the purpose of the letter. The purpose of the letter is to let your brain work through these things. And again, if your belief is that dad's in a better place, then this really makes a hell of a lot of sense, right? But either way, I promise you, this is something that will be cathartic. There are really some beautiful things that happen when you go and take this assignment seriously and write that letter, and do it as if you're sitting in the room, just having a talk. What are the things that you really wish that you could have said? Do it. And I promise you, you're going to be very happy with the results of that. I promise you will.
Yes.
But sorry, that one jumped out.
No, I'm glad you addressed that, because it's, it's something that we kind of, sometimes, guys, some of the things we think is corny, we just need to do anyway.
Well, I thought it was.
Yeah. No.
I mean, honestly, I really did.
And I would have thought the same, guys. I mean, I'm not just saying that. It's just something that, you can't, in your mind, you can't work out how that could actually help you, right? You're like, well, because you go back to when you were a kid, did something wrong at school, you had to write it 20 times on a piece of paper, right? Or on the chalkboard, or of course, I guess I'm aging myself here, but but that's kind of the same thing. But these things are therapeutic, and there's a reason why, when you go to therapy and stuff, that's why they have you do this stuff. They're not just doing it for no reason. These things actually work. And I hate to say it like that, because I know it's like, this stuff is mumbo jumbo. No, it's not. Some of it, most of it isn't. It just sounds, because we think it's so simple that it can't work, but it does. And I've heard of a lot of people talk about, just like what you just said, somebody lose a loved one, and not even with the addiction or any of that stuff, just actually writing a goodbye letter to them, and I've even seen. Heard of people taking it to the grave and leaving it there, and that kind of thing, and I know it's all symbolic, but in your mind, and I think in our minds,
it does amazing things.
It does. It lets you know that you did something, right?
And I think that this is probably a great. It's sort of a good time to like you said, sometimes the things that you hear are corny. I'm not going to lie to you. Everything. I'm not kidding. Everything Q told me to do, I thought was corny. I'm not kidding. When he said to me, you're going to go and you're going to look in the mirror, right? And you're going to do this, this daily affirmation thing. And you're going to look in the mirror and you're going to say, you know what? I don't do dope. I'm sober. I don't do dope. I'm not a drug user, right? And you're just going to say this in the mirror. The first day I did it, I thought, what a jackass. If I got to do this every day, I can't do this. I'll just not do it. And the thing that drove me, and I think I probably told this 100 times, but I was on a yard that was so famous for dope. It was amazing. I mean, there probably is no place in the federal system where there's more heroin. It's just ridiculous. The prices in there were almost as cheap as they were on the street. And in most places, it's 700 times more expensive, literally. And in here, it was street prices, and they gave the stuff away. And there was a guy that everybody said, he was the biggest fiend in the whole world. And I said, did he run out of money? You know what I mean? How did he stop, And they were like, no, Q got a hold of him, So when Q, basically, gave me that shot, people, if he had said, cut your finger off, if he had something that was going to work, no matter how stupid it was going to make me feel, I was going to give it a try. And I have come to realize that there's a reason, for every one of those things. You hear daily affirmations. I'm sure I'm not the first person you've heard talk about it, right? Anything that gets so much a part of the rehab community that it ends up in a book, or it ends up being the butt of a joke on Saturday Night Live, right? There is a reason that these things get repeated again and again. And it's just like group therapy. It's just like being here. If you had told me a long time ago that this is what I would be doing every night from 6 to 7 people, I would have laughed for 2 days.
Yeah.
Right? This is just not. But once you start to play the game and to do all of the different things, it's why you don't skip any of them. I remember the goodbye letter to drug assignment. I was like, this is the dumbest, right? I'm going to rate this as if the drug is a person. Like, this is just stupid. Why would I do this? And that one rocked me. When I was done writing my, and I've done about 4 of them because I did one for you guys, but the very first one that I wrote, I just sat and never, I didn't have to think about it. I never stopped writing. And the emotions that came out, like, I was pissed. I was really unhappy at this substance. You know what I mean? I really was. Like, this stuff destroyed me. This stuff, stole 2 really pretty decent women. And that's, when as I've said before, when I went down to rock bottom, we talked about this last night. When I went to rock bottom, I didn't go alone. On the way down, I grabbed at anybody that was nearby and I dragged them with me. And, which is awful, but having the ability to write that out and be angry at that drug and tell it to go to hell, did a lot of work for me. It really helped out. What's up, Mom?
Oh, well, Bubba News says something. I mean, thank you for sharing that. I'll go ahead and read the couple of comments he said here. He said, so true, writing it out and then burning it helped me. Okay, now listen, that's an innuendo there, or you're looking at that specific part for a reason, guys, because that makes a difference what he's saying there. But anyway, it helped me. It stayed between me and God and accepting forgiveness of myself. The person in the prison was me. Now, what he's talking about here, guys, is he goes on. He said he lost his late wife to leukemia, and this is who I'm assuming that's who he wrote the letter to. And then it says the families often struggle within the first year after the addiction stops. They were addicted to the addiction as well, and that's a great point. It's so true. They're addicted to you being that person. They can't. And I guess addiction probably might be a little strong there, but that's what they see, and that's what they expect. And but it definitely, Bubba, thanks for sharing that, man. That's not an easy thing to share.
No, it's not. Thank you.
Yeah. Says Virginia, that's what we do. We try to numb the pain. It's great to see you. He was talking to Virginia there, and that's another thing, guys. I mean, our first reaction is to either we go back to the fight or flight type of thing. So we're either trying to numb it or run from it, and sometimes you just got to turn around and take that sucker right on the chin, man. And because when you get back up, guess what? It ain't gonna hit you again. I mean, not as hard. It might try to hit you again, but you're going to be able to defend it off a little bit easier.
Well, the problem with running, my brother likes to say this a lot. The problem, from with running away from your problems is, by the time you deal with them, you're exhausted, right? You know what I mean? You basically just ran a marathon. It's not like you get around the corner and go, oh, I lost them, right? That your problems are going to be right on your heels. No matter how far you run and no matter how fast you run, they're always going to be right behind you. So you may as well turn around instantly and fight them. At least you're healthy and ready to go, right? At least you got all your energy. And again, that's an affectation of drug use, a huge one. Why do today what I can put off until tomorrow? Why do tomorrow what I could put off until I'm sober, right? 16 years from now. And that's, everything that goes into that, the coping and the, all of it. It's, yeah. Let me one of those things.
Let me do this before we because we're at the top here. I want to say this and just look at the screen, guys, because it's going to be kind of quick. I wasn't planning on doing this, but when you start feeling, hey, people aren't seeing me how they should. Sometimes you got to remind people, right? And you got to remind them that you're not that person. So they're seeing you sometimes still as that. And, it's up to us to make them see us as that. And they're gonna have to put some effort into that also. But, make it worth it to them for them to put that effort into it. And, and don't feel so bad because you're not that person on the left. You are now that person on the right. They just don't know it yet. It's just what it is, guys. So,
amen. And Scott said, so glad I came today. Well, we're glad that you're here, man. We really are. And we are at the top of the hour. I'll tell you something, people. You know what tonight is? Tonight I'm doing steaks, right, on the barbecue. And when this is over, I'm going outside. I went about 7 or 8 years without having a steak. If you had any idea, I don't know that I will ever get back accustomed to steaks. Every time I eat one, I think, oh, Lord, right? It's just one of those things. I know, not good for you, all that, blah, blah, blah. But it isn't heroin, it's steak. And yeah, I can't wait. But I'll tell you something. I told Mark earlier, right as we were starting the show tonight, the third member of our team went on strike. Like I couldn't get, Squirrel just blew me off. No matter how many times I called her, she wouldn't come in here. And about 3 or 4 minutes before we ended this show, she hopped up where she's supposed to be. So fortunately, we'll be able to pull this off. But I'm a little upset that she blew off 3/4 of the show. Apparently, she didn't want to listen to me tonight. But we will be back 23 hours from right now. We will be right here. Same bat time, same bat channel. Between now and then, people reach out and try to save somebody. And you know what? If society doesn't treat you exactly the way you think that they should be treating you, just keep doing what you're doing. And come back here because we'll treat you exactly like you're supposed to be treated until they come around. You have our word. I am Captain Tommy Scoville. On the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
And this lazy animal here who showed up late for work, this is a cat in a basket. Good night, everybody. We love you.